Okay, once again, same rules apply. 2 minutes yes, and 2 minutes no.
Thank you. So my name is Ewan. The reason I've brought this up, I guess the wider context, is political policing that's become a problem recently. I think it's demonstrable that social unrest has provoked heightened interest in policing people, not by their crimes but by their opinions. To this I can point to protests at Fort Mason last year on March 26, and the subsequent recording of protesters who included students of their personal details. I can point also to a myriad of arrests at UK Cup protests last year, who also featured a large backing of students who were arrested and fined under breach of peace charges that would fail as offences in court because the case laws safeguard against arresting people or protesters only because they annoy people. It's very clear that they should only be arrested in the case of abusing and threatening behaviour, but they're arrested anyway. I feel that a particular response that I've heard as a consequence of running this debate is that a special constable is someone who works in the community, and I think that I think that just complicates matters. I don't think that it's to a benefit. I think a constable can liaise with the police between two roles to provide additional numbers, provide a sense of security where needed, but I don't think that's... So I think a SAB can get liaise with the police, but I don't think they need to work with the police in order to do that. So this has happened recently with events in the Meadows. We've got police now, that's great, but I don't think we need to work with the police in order to ask the police to do that, sorry. But this motion isn't against somehow the community policing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think... vote yes.
Thank you. So this is about political policing and the fact that police treat students unfairly.
Well, firstly, my name's Callum Leslie. I don't think that's what it's about, because I asked you, and I think, I don't know if it is you that's running the Facebook page for this campaign, but I asked the person who was whether they had any evidence or any examples of our current student president, who is a special constable, being asked to use that position to give information to the police. They said no. I asked if they had any examples of any special constable being asked to use their other occupation to gain information they wouldn't have otherwise to give to the police, and they said no. So I'm not entirely sure what this question is about. But I think, on the wider point, I mean, it's unfortunately, I'm pretty sure most people in this room know, but for any of you who don't, our current president, Matthew McPherson, is a special police constable. Well, that's what the issue is about. And the issue is that some people feel uncomfortable with our current president being a special constable. I feel more comfortable as a result of my president being a special constable because I think it makes him a better representative. I think it gives him a better knowledge of the communities in which our university sits. It gives him better knowledge of the issues facing these communities. And it's just generally a good thing. He gives up his time to be volunteer. He doesn't get paid. It's not a particularly glamorous job. I wouldn't do it. I don't know how many people in this room would willingly do it either. So I take my hat off to him for doing it. And I don't think that he should be persecuted for doing that. I don't think there's any evidence that special constables take part in political policing, or that a sabbatical who was a police employee would take part in political policing. This question is only directed at special constables as well. So if this is an issue about people who work for the police force using their jobs to give information, this doesn't exclude other people who work in the police office, who maybe work in a back office in the police, or in any other way work in our police force. It only affects special constables, which is why I feel particularly uncomfortable that I think it's more personally directed at our president than it should be. But that's a wider issue. So I would say that it makes him a better sabbatical, not a worse one.
Thank you. So the questions are all the way around. It actually gives the sabbatical an advantage. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, come on, Nabil. Yes, one in the back there.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about the fact that if let's say EUSA or the students wanted to campaign against something that's currently the law, they would want to, I don't know, promote some changes in the law. Would you think that there would be a conflict of interest there? I'm sorry, I don't know much about the way, what are the duties precisely of a special constable. But if there is a conflict against the law and what the students would want to be, how much does it affect the person? Do they have to make a definitive stance, or can they separate the two things, the two jobs?
Okay, good question. So, is there a conflict of interest if the students mandate a sabbatical officer to try and attempt a change in the law?
The short answer is no. To give a little bit more clarity, a special constable has many of the same powers as a regular police constable, almost all. In fact, exactly the same, says the special constable. Apart from the salary, that's the only bit they don't get. But if we mandate a sabbatical to change the law, I mean, we all have a legal right to protest. That's absolutely enshrined in law and a basic right that we all have. And you know, a sabbatical officer would be still completely free to protest for a change in the law if that's what we mandated them to do, or if that's what they felt they wanted to do personally.
So it would be totally fine for a special constable to campaign for a change in the law. What do we think?
I'm sorry.
So the question is, okay, I guess just random, if EUSA students mandate their sabbaticals to try and man a campaign to legalise cannabis, for instance, that would be against the law. Would there be a conflict of interest there? Is that? Yeah. So the students of Edinburgh University mandate their sabbatical officers to run a campaign for the legalisation of cannabis. That's obviously against the law. So would the sabbatical, being a special constable, be a barrier to them doing that? Would there be a conflict of interest there?
So, if a special constable is asked to run a campaign that's breaking the law, is that conflict of interest? I guess you could say that can be one way or the other. I don't think that's really what comes into this question. This question is more dealing with people who are sort of campaigning legally, in a sense. I guess I don't know if we can mandate that. I'm not sure if that's the answer to that. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Another hand up there. Yeah.
There are some aspects of the some aspects of the law that the police as a service has a particularly poor record of doing well on. For example, sexual assault and rape. And if I had one of these instances and had a really, really uncomfortable situation with the police, then would I be scared of my own sabbatical officers when I might want to confide in them and get advice from them? Is that not a separate conflict of interest?
Okay, so is there an accessibility issue there? Is a sabbatical officer being a special constable a barrier to the students being able to approach them?
So I guess it is. So I guess someone bring up some of that. I guess that's very personal reasons for doing that. I can see why someone would feel uncomfortable in the same way I would feel uncomfortable protesting and not being able to speak to someone on that basis. I guess it's a separate conflict of interest, but one that definitely needs addressing.
Okay, so it's a conflict of interest, and simply being a part of the police force makes some people uncomfortable approaching you.
I mean, I think this is a very difficult question because it comes down to a matter of personal choice and how individuals feel about other individuals, and I think that's absolutely a matter of personal choice. And I absolutely think that the police have been poor on some of these issues, and I'm sure that there are many people working from within the police force to improve their record on issues like this. But in the same way that I might feel uncomfortable, say a woman felt uncomfortable if she was having an issue with an unplanned pregnancy, going to a sabbatical officer who was a Catholic, if that was something that was an issue, then that could be similarly said to be a conflict of interest. If there's something about a sabbatical officer that makes them unapproachable to an individual, then that's a shame. But I don't think that's something that, as a student association, that we can mandate people on, because I think that's a slippery slope.
Okay, any more questions? Yes.
I've got a friend who's a special constable, and he does some pretty cool stuff like fighting crime in the community. Do you think that, ignoring what has been labelled as political policing and looking at the stuff that police do in the community, do you think that the stuff that police do in the community outside of policing protest and doing things which I agree with you on. Do you think that the police are a good thing when they are fighting crime in the community?
Okay, so are the police a force for good?
Yes. And I think that while we've seen a rise in demonstrations and direct action over the past couple of years, the majority of the work that the police do is still centred around keeping us all safe. Particularly the work of special constables are often used to supplement normal police forces on busy periods like weekends, when there might be a lot of people out who need help to get home, who aren't particularly safe in the communities. And particularly special constables are at the heart of that community safety work. They also are at the heart of initiatives in road safety and going into schools to educate our young people on keeping themselves safe. So I think that the vast majority of the work done by the vast majority of police officers is absolutely a force for good.
Yeah, I agree. I think working in the community in such a manner is commendable. I think this question is more related to the combined role on campus, but yeah, I agree.
Okay, I think maybe we've got time for one very quick question, so please keep it brief, and then we'll move on to the final one.
I'd just like to get your response on the fact that I don't think that you necessarily have to be a special constable to do good in the community. There are so many other things that you could volunteer to do without allying yourself to an organisation which has been proven to further marginalise voices that haven't been heard properly, such as women and BME people and men who are victims of sexual assault and rape. Like, there are less controversial ways of doing good.
So the police can do good, but there are much less controversial ways and perhaps better ways of doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's many ways to help out the community if you so wish to. I think you could even talk to the police if you think that's an acceptable response in certain cases without having to work with them, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree as well, and you know, I think it's a matter of personal choice what you want to volunteer for. There are many different organisations that, if you want to go and do volunteer work, there are lots of different opportunities out there. Some people obviously choose to be special constables because that's a route they feel they want to go down. Obviously, as I say, there are many different ways of volunteering, but one thing that special constables can do is that they can, more directly than other volunteering people, they can get involved in issues of community safety. For example, if someone is drunk and disorderly in the street and is making a community unsafe, they have the power to go and arrest that person. Now, if you're volunteering with a third sector organisation, obviously you don't have that power. But I think that's a matter of personal choice. There's lots of ways to contribute to the community, and being a special constable is just one of them.
Okay, we're already over time here, so we're going to move to the last questions. I get a big round of applause for our two participants, please.